broadcasting live out of a basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox City's Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core. I've got a co-host today, a special co-host. He's in the band Pudge. I'd like to welcome Tony McNamara to Fox City's Core. Tony, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Our guest today is a musician and media mogul. He runs the rural record label Boy Howdy Productions. His latest album, Essential Country, was released to rave reviews. I'd like to welcome Boy Howdy to Fox City's Core. How you doing today, Boy Howdy?
Doing well. Morning, boys.
Morning. Thanks for coming in this morning. And you're normally pretty busy. You're juggling a lot of different things, the record label and lots of different projects, which I'm excited to get into because we've got a lot of ground to cover. But
I like to keep busy.
I mean, when does a day typically start for Boy Howdy?
Well, Boy Howdy starts cracking eggs at 6:30 in the morning over at the Lawless Coffee Shop. Work there, feed people all day, and then as soon as I'm done around 2:30, I hit the studio till I drop.
And I think that it's good for people to know that the music industry, like people might look at Boy Howdy and just think that you don't have to have any other jobs because you've got this album that is doing really well. And I mean, do you get that a lot where people are just surprised to see you like working at different places?
It's a very mysterious industry to navigate, and you know, it doesn't really pay the bills, so you got to make do with what you got.
So this album that you released, Essential Country, it's a great kind of a throwback to when music was really good in country western music. What got you interested in that style of country western, and what made you decide to actually start writing an album to put out?
So in other words, were you born country?
I'd say so. My mom was a big country fan growing up. I mean, my grandma listened to Patsy Cline, Dolly Parton, Hank Williams. She's a big Conway Twitty, Charlie Pride, all that stuff that was on Hee Haw. That was kind of a big inspiration for me. Just like the hillbilly Saturday Night Live with all these amazing music guests. But honestly, as a kid, I wasn't too into it. I was like, what is this? What is this twangy stuff? Like, and then my mom started getting into more modern 90s country. Dwight Yoakam was a big one. And I was like, I don't.
Garth Brooks?
Garth Brooks. You know, the twang in the voice kind of was a little off-putting, and it took me, you know, some growing up to kind of truly understand.
Do you like the more modern country less than the older stuff, or about the same?
I'd say it's really grown on me recently, especially leading up to recording the record. I was listening to a lot of Travis Tritt, a lot of Dwight Yoakam, a lot of Randy Travis, Garth Brooks, and I kind of wanted to channel that style, but kind of sticking true to, you know, the tradition of country music.
So when you started doing this style of music, did that introduce you to like a whole different group of people playing that genre, or did you kind of mix in with rock and bands of different genres when you were performing?
Well, Boy Howdy came about as the lead songwriter during the pandemic. It was like I'd been performing in this group Dusk on the pedal steel, and we're in the middle of recording a record, and then the pandemic hit, so we had to, you know, put that on hold. So I was stuck at home, and I was like, well, I got this 8-track Tascam cassette recorder. I might as well put it to use, and started writing songs, and eventually the album came to be. You know, what is it, 8 songs, 7 songs?
Yeah, I believe it clocks in at right around 30 minutes. But yeah, and for people that aren't aware as well, you recorded the album like yourself.
Yep, stuck at home in my basement. My roommate at the time, Ridley Tankersley, who plays drums with the electric Ranchhands, he recorded some stuff for that, and I'd send it around to other members of the band, who eventually became the Electric Ranchhands. But it was mostly a solo effort up front, and then,
So with the Electric Ranchhands, is that a pretty solid group, or is it a rotating cast of members?
So with my backing bands, I've been giving them, depending on the lineup, their own band names. So I'm a man with many bands. The first one was the Electric Ranchhands, and I recently played in St. Paul with a group of guys that all live in the Twin Cities, and just sent them the tracks and showed up the day before and ran the tunes, and they all nailed it. So our drummer, Samuel Straub, lives in Edina, so they were dubbed the Edina Sonics.
Tight.
Yeah.
So it must be kind of fun for some of these guys to kind of dive into a genre they don't normally get to play a whole lot.
Right. And the reason Dusk came to be was because we were, recording these soul and country covers, and I'd finally met some people in town that appreciate country music. And it's like, well, let's try and write some country tunes. And, to be honest, Dusk never got quite country enough for me. So
Well, they are pretty country too. They do have a rock country kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's more of a rock group, I'd say. And then Boy Howdy came to be to kind of fulfill the more countryside of myself.
So when you started writing for this album, did you know right away that you were going to try to get a full album written, or were you just sort of thinking, well, I'm going to maybe put out a couple songs as Boy Howdy and see how it goes?
Yeah, I wanted to do a record. I didn't really know how it would work live, no one really knew what was going to happen with live music once the pandemic hit. And so it was mostly just to keep staying at home and keep on writing. And
Are we talking about which pandemics? I know we had the new metal surgeons. Which one are you referring?
We're talking COVID-19 here, Tony.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so then I put out the single Cowboy Key, and that kind of garnered a little bit of attention. I released a music video with Finn Bjornrud, and the concept was, all right, Boy Howdy's got a gig, but he doesn't have a ride. So let's get to the gig. And it takes this long journey on foot. So we shot most of it in Appleton, like rural, Freedom, and then we went up to the UP to Marquette to record some drone footage, and we just kind of traveled all over to capture the scene of Wisconsin and make it seem like it's going over a few seasons. So that took a while to release, but then the video finally came out, and then people started asking me, like, what's up with Boy Howdy? Is he going to start a band? And then my friend Tommy Goodroad got a hold of me and was like, all right, you want to do a little tour? And so that kind of, it pressured me to finish the record, and so I could promote it on tour. And
so what you're doing is pretty unique to the area. I mean, how have you been finding other acts to do shows with, or how does that happen?
Yeah, I feel like the country scene, singer-songwriters kind of like gravitate towards each other, and so like as soon as a new country artist pops up, then all the other country artists are like, hey, like, I'm trying to get a gig, you want to trade shows? Like, you come down here, I'll come up there. And that's how it happened with Tommy, and so it's not a very big scene around here, so you kind of get to know everyone pretty quickly.
So you mentioned Cowboy Key. What is a Cowboy Key?
Well, you go to Ace Hardware, and they got all the keys on the rack there that you can, grind your new house key, and they got the little one with cowboy boot and the cowboy hat on it, and that's the Cowboy Key.
Sweet.
What's the shape of the key to your heart?
I'm trying to think of. I have the cheetah key.
The cheetah?
Yeah. But I never actually got the shaped with the big shape on the top, because I always felt like they were too heavy. Which sometimes the lyrical content of country music can feel heavy.
Yes, indeed.
Compared to Dusk, when you're playing a Dusk show, how does that differ from playing a Boy Howdy show? Do you feel more pressure with Boy Howdy because...
Probably different songs.
Yeah, it's a little more laid back in Boy Howdy. But it's a little more pressure being up front, and with Dusk it feels more collaborative. I mean, Boy Howdy is also collaborative in where I'm, asking people to back me up and take solos, and Dusk is a well-oiled rock and roll machine.
Do you prefer to be in the front or in the back?
I guess I like to get around.
So are you up for a question?
Yeah, let's take one.
All right.
Hey there, got a question there for Boy Howdy. Boy Howdy, you captured the classic country sound so gosh darn well, and I love it. I was curious, what are your thoughts on the more modern country approach, and if you have any plans of maybe incorporating it into your music? And I've got another question for y'all, if that's okay. I was just curious what Boy Howdy's thoughts are on another local musician, Ryley Crowe. There's, any tea or gossip between y'all, or if y'all are best friends. All right, thanks for letting me ask a couple, 2 or 3 questions. Have a good day. Bye.
That's a pretty loaded bunch of questions.
Sounds like a true cowboy on the line there. Well, let's talk about country music. The country music today, I would say, still tries to, hold on to the tradition of classic country, where it's, based on the lyrics, the story. There's kind of a formula, like heartache, partying, drinking. But the production, I really like modern production on country. The old stuff, I guess I tried to do more like a blend on the record with the old and the new. The old production of the cassette 8-track. Some of the songs were based on more like bluegrassy, like home recording style, harmonies, a lot of harmonies. But I'd say like the tradition has held up over the years of just like, telling good stories, and I think that's what draws a lot of people to country music in general.
Bro country, real country, or not? Like the
I
sandals?
guess I'm not too familiar with the bro country. As bro as I get would probably have to be I like it, I love it, I want some more of it.
You don't have to do this, but what about like boy bro?
Boy bro?
Boy bro.
What do you mean?
That could be like the name of an album or a song, or it could be like a genre. Boy bro.
Bro howdy?
Boy bro. Yeah, there's a lot of options. So then the second part of the question.
Oh, Ryley Crowe. Well, him and I go way back. We've been collaborating, writing songs since, we were kids, and both grew up in the same part of town and came up learning recording techniques together, songwriting techniques, and I think he's a talented, handsome guy.
Is he involved at all with the Boy Howdy Productions label?
Yeah, I put out a record for his group Darn It. That was the first Boy Howdy Productions release, a 7-inch single and accompanied by a couple music videos, and he's my flagship artist.
So Ryley does a lot of things with his brothers. Do you think that's kind of a little generic to be in bands with your brothers? I mean, do you ever say anything to him about that?
Yeah, brother bands aren't,
First of all, they don't work.
never work.
Yeah.
They're arguing constantly.
Yep.
And the music's bad.
Yep. Like the Black Crows.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the question. You brought up the videos. Well, you brought up Darn It. And Darn It's got a great video for Eurotrash. And any correlation between the Eurotrash video and Cowboy Key?
Well, there is an appearance of the physical record in the Cowboy Key music video, which is...
Are you messing with us?
No,
You're being totally serious.
being serious.
So that's kind of an Easter egg there.
A little Easter egg, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So the Eurotrash single appears in the Cowboy Key.
Right. Like the title sequence. Boy Howdy wakes up in his room. And he's got a copy of Eurotrash sitting on his record shelf.
Do you think that may be offensive to Europeans?
I guess I don't really care.
You've got your album available at Eroding Winds Records in Appleton on College Avenue. I think the whole Boy Howdy Production catalog is available at the record store.
That's a great local record shop. I try and keep it stocked with all the Boy Howdy releases.
So is that a thing where you're just showing up at the record store, see what's sold, restock it?
Yep, and you know, every time I show up, they're usually like, "We need more." So
Not
they're
surprised.
selling.
Yeah.
So you're moving units.
Yeah, a couple.
So really quick, boy. So I brought in some grass today from outside. So I was thinking, part of country music, at least from what I can tell, is a lot of them often have grass sticking out of their mouth. Do you ever do that?
I can't say that I have.
But you know what I'm talking about.
I do. Yeah.
I mean, I
Very
hope I'm
familiar.
okay. So I thought maybe you could join me in using some
Let's try it.
grass.
Let's try it. Now this is supposed to,
It's not that fresh because it's from last season, but it's been sitting outside all winter, so I think that it's seasoned. I don't know how long
I'm
of
gonna
a
keep it. I'm gonna break it a little short. I think.
is that too long?
Is this too long?
Yeah, is that mine's pro. And are you supposed to
You chew it. Yeah,
like this?
it's like a stick of gum, but cheaper.
Is it weird if we touch? We'll try to keep
We'll
them
keep our
apart.
distance.
Okay.
Well, this has kind of turned into sort of a news segment now.
Yeah, when are we gonna bring on the exotic animals?
Ooh. Do you
So, I
have
mean-
some here?
Do you think that's kind of a stereotype, though, that country western music, grass in the mouth, that's kind of somewhat of a stereotype, I'd think.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to the origins of the grass in the mouth. As far as its relation to country
mean,
music,
So when you do it though, does it feel
it feels pretty
natural.
country. Yeah,
it feels natural?
yeah.
I mean, it looks good. I think it looks real good.
I was never a big gum chewer, so this kind of fills that void.
This is a pretty sweet jacket. I was meaning to comment on it when I first saw you with it.
I wore this in the Cowboy Key music video.
That actual jacket.
Yeah,
That should be in a shadow box on the wall down here.
maybe I'll leave it.
So Boy Howdy does have an appearance. I mean, that hat is a trademark.
Yeah, this is my grandpa Skip's cowboy hat.
So when Boy Howdy came to be, was it from maybe seeing the cowboy hat, or was it after you started writing, you saw the cowboy hat, and then that was sort of a...
Boy Howdy, as soon as I put on the cowboy hat, Boy Howdy was born.
Have you played a shows without the hat on yet?
No.
Is Boy a nickname or is that your real name?
It's it's more of a superhero alter ego.
So Boy's not a real name.
Boy Howdy is my name.
So Howdy is your last name.
You could say that.
All right, well, I think with the grass in your mouth, this is supposed to be kind of a lighthearted interview. And
We don't use pesticides on my lawn either, by the way. This is organic grass.
Oh, that's too bad.
So let's talk about shows. Boy Howdy's first show, you had the Ranchhands, the original lineup of the first incarnation of the band. How did that show go? And then preceding it, did you sort of kind of get into the groove doing the shows?
Yeah.
Or was it there always a wrench getting thrown in with a new member not playing it exactly like the Ranchhands prior?
Well, I'm trying to, with Boy Howdy, just take whatever gigs I can get. And it's a project where it's a solo project, but I don't really like performing solo, so whoever can back me up for whatever gig I get, which is kind of the beauty of it. I can collaborate with a lot of different musicians and play a lot of different types of shows. And so the Ranchhands was Frank Anderson, Alex Drossart, Sam Farrell, Ridley and Amos from Dusk. I play with all those guys in many different projects, and so
do any of those guys ever express their jealousy for your success with Boy Howdy?
No, surprisingly,
They will.
someday.
Yep.
Well,
That's the goal.
It's a pretty talented list of names that you mentioned there. So I mean,
With Boy Howdy being, obviously the
Top of the
biggest.
bill.
Yeah.
when you're playing with a group like that, do you give them leeway to kind of get creative? Because there's two ways to go about it. You can either play it like the album, or you can let these very talented musicians like sort of do their own thing during the songs. How lenient are you as far as letting them stray from the album?
So a couple of the guys play on the record because I just wanted a little bit of a different flavor than what I could, what I could perform. So taking, the record to a live group, I really just wanted to just give them the songs, show up to rehearsal, and see what they could do. And if it's like the record, it's cool. If not, that's oftentimes even cooler. So
We've got a question.
Hey, I got a question for Boy Howdy. Enjoying the show, a long-time watcher, first-time caller. I was interested in getting into playing pedal steel. I was wondering if you had any suggestions on where I could pick one up. I'll listen offline. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
the pedal steel guitar. Everyone is fascinated with the pedal steel guitar. It's a very magical instrument. I have always been drawn to it since I heard it in country music growing up. Amos Pitch played pedal steel on the first Dusk record, and that was just a student model 6-string Fessenden pedal steel with 2 foot pedals.
You say Fessenden?
Fessenden.
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 Yes. Yesenden. And as soon as I heard that record and they were starting the band, I was like, you got to let me play that thing. So I learned the very basics of pedal steel on my own with this 6-string, the Fessenden 6-shooter. And eventually, after playing a handful of shows, Appleton's historian, Frank Anderson, came out, and he grew up playing pedal steel, still does, and he saw us play, and he was just like, that's the band. So we got to know each other. I actually went to high school with his kids, and we started doing lessons together, and he showed me the ropes on his steel and compared it to my student model and told me basically like, all right, because I was ready to upgrade to a better pedal steel. He's like, well, you got to get a Showbud Maverick. That's the one. And so I went on Reverb, found a Showbud Maverick, used my student loans to buy it.
So, one, I do know that you play a lot of different instruments. What do you play?
I play the pedal steel, I play guitar, I play the drums, I play the bass. The mandolin was my first instrument. Pretty much anything that you don't have to blow into. I don't do wind instruments. a little bit of violin and piano, and yeah.
She's not really into the blowjob type instruments, but the other stuff you'll play. Are you self-taught?
If you want to put it that way, yeah.
Are you self-taught with all those, or do you take lessons with any?
I took lessons growing up for piano and percussion, and then kind of fell out of that and taught myself after playing drums in bands for years. Wanting to write my own songs, I taught myself the guitar, and then eventually got a 4-track tape recorder and learned how to record myself on all the different parts of a song. You know, I'd lay down the drum track, play some guitar to it, sing along, fill in the bass track, and eventually you start hearing other instruments. So,
would you consider guitar to be your prime instrument, or if you had to pick your main instrument that you would identify with, what would it be?
I'd say that I'm a drummer at heart, but I don't play drums so much these days. I play a lot of, it's hard to write a song on the drums, so I pick up a guitar most days.
You mentioned Frank Anderson, which he's been on the show before. Phenomenal.
I feel like you can't go through one of these without bringing him up.
Well, Frank is like, he's a legend in the, you know, he's in the Fox Cities. Like, when you were taking lessons from him, did he give you any advice as far as like how to play, like not only how to play, but how to like sit, how to like project to a crowd, anything like that?
Well, you know, Frank is a guy who appreciates a good gimmick. So I think he doesn't give advice, but he definitely has his opinions on what works and what doesn't. So
that's great. Yeah, Frank, he's a treasure, Fox City's treasure for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be happy if at a Boy Howdy show the majority of people showed up with cowboy hats? Would that be a thing that would make you happy?
Oh, I'd love it. Whenever I play in the Twin Cities, there's a big, there's a good dance scene out there. And always a crowd on the floor doing square dance, 2-step, and it's a good time. Yeah.
You have a good amount of musicians under the Boy Howdy Production label, including Frieder and a gentleman named Cousin Arthur, who's also been on this show. Mm-hmm. Cousin Arthur put out a album, I think, called Good Feelings.
Gut Feeling.
Yeah, so close. But how does somebody like Cousin Arthur take your input? We're talking about Frank sort of giving you pedal steel lessons. Mm-hmm. Are you mentoring people like Cousin Arthur?
Usually in the studio, I like to, give production tips, and Cousin Arthur came to me early on in his, career, and didn't, necessarily he recorded on his own, but he had never been to a studio. So there's different, every session is going to be different, like with everyone's experience and how they approach the recording process. And when you go to a studio and like you have a producer or an engineer, you kind of have to like work together. So there's, it's always a learning experience, no matter how much experience you have. So there's a lot of techniques that I employ that not every studio employs or prefers, but it's all different, and it's all meant to be fun.
So when the Gut Feeling album came out, I mean, obviously you had such a big part in that. Is that releasing something like that? Is it almost the same feeling as releasing like a Boy Howdy album?
Yeah, I'd say so, especially with Arthur, because it was just me and him. And that's different than like a band coming in with songs already prepared and composed, and there's less of a, it's less of a creative collaboration on my end. It's more of I'm trying to capture what these guys are doing, or this group of people, and try and make it sound as best as I can. So it's more analytical. And then with Arthur, it's more of like, oh, how can we make this bare bones track that you brought to me like sound like what I'm hearing in my head, So it's kind of like you know, we're writing a song together, but he's already written it, and we just got to make it come to life.
Did you have any input into like the Free Dirt album? Anything on there, or were we just releasing it?
That was fun because that's a group, but it's a small group, 3 guys, and they're all so talented, and we didn't really have to do much. Like, the fun came in when we busted out all the percussion and like overdubs and singing the vocals, because they came in, they laid down the bass tracks, guitar, baritone guitar, drums, and then I was like, okay, now it's time, like, we can get cut loose a little bit and have fun. And I really like to play the tambourine, so whenever there's a spot that could use tambourine, I'm like, all right, my time to shine. So
it's a really good album. Like the Boy Howdy Productions is a good stable like of great music. If people go to Bandcamp or even go down to College Avenue if you're in the Appleton area and check out the Boy Howdy Production section, you can't go wrong. Just grab a random release and take it home and listen to it. But a lot of great songs. Knock Me on the Head from Free Dirt gets stuck in my head all the time. But so we mentioned Free Dirt, Cousin Arthur. Anybody else on the Boy Howdy Production label?
Darn It was the first one.
That's right. Mentioned Darn It.
So we've got 4 artists in the roster currently.
Any plans to add any more?
I'd like to release some more Boy Howdy stuff, and I'm working with a band called the Wishbone Breakers right now.
Oh, it's a great band.
We have their new record is very close to being finished, so that'll probably be the next Boy Howdy release, but no scheduled dates for that release quite yet.
Wishbone Breakers looking at late summer of 2023 then?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
So what do you need to finish on the album?
We are mixing like the last song, maybe 2 songs. But then there's the artwork, and figuring out how to physically release a record it always takes a little time. So,
speaking of time, Boy Howdy, how do you find time to go like not only play in some of these projects like your solo band and Dusk, but how do you find time to go watch shows like Wishbone Breakers, Crowe Brothers, Hang 10, like bands like that you might want to see in the area? How do you figure out your scheduling with all these different bands?
I usually find my way there one way or another.
Wherever the wind takes you, I would imagine.
Yep.
Favorite Garth Brooks song?
Thunder Rolls.
Oh,
that's a good one. This is kind of a controversial question. We had a question from Ian Hanley. Question for Tony. It says, is Tony dyeing his hair?
no, I'm not. I think it looks pretty gray, if you ask me.
It looks great.
Great. I like that.
Great.
That's good. Great. That's pretty clever.
We've got another question. If you want to pull the headphones up, let's see what we have here.
Hello, Boy Howdy. I know you have called yourself the Truest Cowboy. I'd love to hear your opinion on what the criteria is for such a title. Thanks so much. I'll be listening. Hopefully hear your answer. Also love your shirtless album cover. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. Well,
You referred yourself as the Truest Cowboy?
Wisconsin's Truest Cowboy.
I've never heard that before.
Name one other.
I can't.
That should answer your question right there.
Yeah. Wow.
Criteria, though. I grew up in the country. The rural pastures of Freedom, Wisconsin. I wear a cowboy hat.
You said something about shirtless as well. I think I've seen.
That's
Do you work out?
You could say that.
Well, I'm guessing if you grew up in the country, you're probably doing a lot of country chores. Did you have a farm in the place you grew up in?
I live next door to a farm.
All right.
So I watch them do their chores.
That's actually probably better than doing it yourself because you have time to actually write the music while you're watching.
That's what they call inspiration.
So the caller mentioned the album cover. Let's show that here. I don't know how the reflection is. That is the album cover for Essential Country. That's an awesome record cover.
Is that a body double or is that actually you?
That's me.
That's tight.
So can you tell us anything about the shooting of this album cover?
That was shot at the house I grew up in Freedom, Wisconsin. My mom has a burn pile in the field of all this brush and old, wood. And she...
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned wood because I actually thought of wood when I saw that photo too.
Yeah, there's a lot of burning wood there.
Mm-hmm.
So she is concerned whenever we burn it that it's not like too dry of a day. And so...
Because that would spread the fire.
Yeah, precisely.
To the farm next door.
Yeah. Don't want that to happen. But it was starting to rain, and I was at home with my little brother, and she was like, Ryley, light up that burn pile. And I said, Antone, get your camera.
Wow.
Well, luckily, it turned out really nice too. Like that is like a classic.
Well,
someday to be classic record cover.
And I think it just goes to show that you need to be ready, like when inspiration hits, you need to grab it by the horns.
Right.
Like grab that bull by the horns. And I
Precisely.
if I get anything out of it, it's almost that Boy Howdy grabs those horns.
Yep.
Get your camera.
Didn't even have time to put a shirt on.
Wow.
So that album cover, I love it. Like, I don't know whose idea it was to put the 99-cent like bargain bin sticker on there, but whose idea was that?
So that's kind of a nod to the fact that I have a lot of cheap country records. That was kind of the inspiration for Boy Howdy. Like growing up, always my grandpa had 2 big racks of old country 45s and mostly 70s stuff, and my mom had a bunch of records, and so that's kind of a nod to the dollar bin, where I get a lot of inspiration.
And you released this on vinyl, cassette, and digitally, and CD, I think, right? So no CD.
No CDs.
Awesome. So the vinyl, that's like the perfect, with that 99-cent and everything, it's the perfect record cover because it, on vinyl, is how it's meant to be seen.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is vinyl expensive, like to the point where you question if it's worth printing vinyl? Like, why did you, and especially cassette, like what kind of risk are you taking when you release a vinyl and a cassette? Because CDs are, well, you can buy them now for like $1 a copy, but records and
cassettes and CDs are comparable in price. Vinyl is definitely an investment, and who better to invest in than yourself? So that was kind of the risk I took with that one, and I'm a record collector, so I want to release records. Yeah.
Did you do any pre-sales for the album release?
No, I released it digitally and cassette first, and then the vinyl press took long, so that came out about 6 months later. So I didn't do any pre-sales. I just took it on the road, and now I have it at all my shows. And you can also buy it at a mono print house. You might find a copy in the dollar bin there.
Oh.
That's right over on Wisconsin and near the corner of Wisconsin and Richmond Street.
Yep. That's where I have my current recording studio as well.
That's actually in the building?
Yep.
So you were at the Refuge for a while, is where your studio was. When you moved that, was it kind of a pain in the butt, like getting all that stuff out, moving it in there, and then does it?
Yeah, I've had many studios in my recording career. So after I left the Refuge, I was working from home for a while, just out of a bedroom, and I have a lot of stuff, and I like to spread out. So this space opened up at a mono print house, and I have more room to roam and be loud. So,
one band we didn't mention on the label is Tromp.
Tromp.
Do you know what's going on with Tromp?
Tromp.
Because I released an EP and then haven't heard anything since the EP release.
Yeah, Trump is still around. We play shows occasionally, and I hope to release some of that music someday because Forrest Bricko is one of my favorite guitarists.
So, as far as the EP that was released, I know Trump played Mile of Music.
Mm-hmm.
Cousin Arthur played Mile of Music.
Yep.
So, Boy Howdy, I believe, played as well.
Yep.
So, a lot of the bands on the label have played Mile of Music.
Yeah, and they'll all be back this year too.
Is Mile, like, what's your opinion on Mile of Music as far as the feelings of playing in front of a crowd at Mile? Do you kind of find that people are listening more?
Yeah, everyone loves Mile Music that is going there. They're super excited, and there's a lot of energy, like, everywhere you go. So I love performing at the Mile Music.
As far as, like, moving units of the album, it also seems like a crowd that buys merchandise, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a hit or miss, depending on the venue or how they have the merch table set up. And
Do you almost feel like you need a card reader, or do you have, like, a square reader?
I do. I prefer cash,
Yeah.
as always.
Yeah, so that's something too that in kind of the current version of how things work when you're playing shows now is, you almost need like a digital scanner thing to get money because a lot of people don't carry cash.
Right.
Have you ever put hay bales on stage?
Oh, that's a good idea.
'Cause I think that'd be nice. Just two
Two
have, bales.
I should have Frank sit on a hay bale.
That would be
'cause
a
he
good
plays
look.
pedal steel.
That'd be a good look.
Well, him and I could each sit on one when we do our duo gigs.
I like that a lot.
With the straw in the mouth.
Yep. See,
There it is.
So
damn it, that looks good.
has Boy Howdy done a lot of duo gigs?
Is Boy Howdy done?
A lot of dual gigs with Frank.
Oh,
Yeah, anytime I, can't scrap a band together or the venue calls for more of a laid-back solo thing, I prefer to have a pedal steel accompanying me because there's a lot of parts of the songs that have solos, and I'm not much of a shredder, so.
Well, I know Frank likes to get crazy too on his playing. He likes it crazier, not as pretty.
Oh yeah. He's been carrying around this pedal board recently. He doesn't use it at rehearsal, but then we show up to the gig and all of a sudden he's blasted off.
That keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
what do you think of Willie Nelson? Is he country?
He's the truest cowboy.
So, would you rank him up high with inspiration?
Oh yeah. That's why I got the braid.
Nice.
There's
Willie's gonna be like 80 this
90.
year? 90? Wow. So
There's-
that's exciting actually to think that you could continue on until 90.
Yeah.
Because would you see, I mean, that's, I don't know. I know it's a ways down the road, but do you ever think about playing when you're 90?
Yeah. That'd be crazy. To be on stage performing for however many people Willie Nelson performs for at
Right.
his age, and to still like try and have that energy.
So his guitar is Trigger, right?
Yeah.
Do you name your guitars?
No, just my Vans.
What's your band's name?
Well, I sadly had to junk my last van. That had the big Boy Howdy logo on it, and that was what was her name? Leslie.
Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah. Now I got a new van, Toyota Sienna. No name yet.
Better than Leslie?
More reliable.
which is key, I think, is, reliable.
Yeah.
It's the Cowboy Key.
That's
So
took the words right out of my mouth.
I've got to ask you about the through video for Cousin Arthur. You're kind of pretty rough on him in that video.
Yeah.
It's you call him up and you're letting him know that he's not producing for the label, and you make him get out there. It's similar to Cowboy Key, and I guess the way that he needs to get out there and play some shows, but you push him out there, and some stuff happens where he runs into some stuff while he's trying to move his equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Was it hard? Like, it was, first of all, was that pretend? Was that made up, or was that based on real events?
10.
The gig, well,
Well,
that
not
was
the gig, but like as far as kind of calling him and, hey, you need to get out there and do stuff for this label.
That's kind of just the funny role of the CEO of a record label, just trying to really caricature that whole thing and be like, all right, we need to make money. You're my star artist. Get out there. These gigs aren't working out. You got to really get your boots on.
And over the commercial break, you're talking about the diss track you're working on.
Yeah.
About Cousin Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think are you worried that will have any sort of pushback? Do you think he'll write a diss track about you?
Well, any publicity is good publicity. I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be good.
So on the album Essential Country, which one was the easiest track to write? Which was the hardest track to write?
Well, the easiest track I had already written when I was 16, and that's Baby Sweet Darling. And I wrote that when I got my first instrument, the mandolin. So that was already done.
Well, that's like about as old country as you can get. That's a great, like, classic sounding Western song. And you wrote that when you were 16.
Yep. From the perspective of me as an old man.
Like now.
Yes, yeah. So it really came full circle.
And then the hardest song to write?
Hardest song to write was probably Alone. Well, I guess that one doesn't have a lot of lyrics, but instrumentally, I really wanted it to be kind of like a Western swing kind of vibe. And so I had to employ other musicians to fill out the improvising aspect of that song. So I got my brother Jake Crowe to play the saxophone. I got Sam to play some guitar, Sam Farrell. I got Alex Drossart to shred some piano. And
You probably didn't have my current number at the time.
no, I'll get it after the show.
So do you find that it's harder to write songs now or find inspiration as you're getting older? Or do you find it just comes in waves as far as the songwriting? Because I know, sometimes you have those songs that come out easily and other times you're kicking yourself trying to come up with ideas and nothing will happen.
Right.
And you start wondering if you're done. I mean, have you noticed anything?
I'd say it takes a little more discipline these days for me to sit down and write a song. Whereas in my younger days, emotionally, there was more inspiration whereas now I'm kind of like settling down,
Yeah.
getting old, and maybe not drawing from my own experiences, but trying to like tell a story or like, I don't know, other less personal concepts.
So when you sit down and you decide you're going to work on writing a song, and it can probably be a combination of different things, but do you normally sit down and you think to yourself, I want to write a song about this, or do you just kind of start noodling around a little bit and you kind of try to do the music first and then attach some sort of emotion to it? Or, I mean, do you have a process?
There's usually a concept before there's any sort of melody or even lyrics. And sometimes inspiration can come from playing the guitar, finding a new chord progression, but a lot of times it's more of a concept that I'm trying to flesh out into a song that's digestible,
And do you practice yet? I mean, that's one thing I always find interesting too with musicians as you get older. Does there come a point where you stop trying to get better at the instrument and you focus more on songwriting? You pretty much feel you have all the tools you need for that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever, at this point, actively work on trying to practice?
I think for a while I was trying to get better as a songwriter, so I wasn't as disciplined in just practicing to get better at an instrument. But recently I've been trying to turn that back around because the inspiration for a song could come from learning a new riff on the guitar, or just trying to change it up and continually be inspired.
Do you feel good with where you're at as far as skill level with guitar, for example?
No, I should practice more.
Do you ever feel bad when you see those ads on Facebook or whatever, where it's the guy shredding and it shows the fretboard with all the dots, and
he's like, "This is so easy.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is subscribe to my thing."
Yep. You're watching it, you're just like, I don't know if I could ever do that.
I think, like, as far as Boy Howdy's style, what I really love about Boy Howdy is the sincerity in your voice, which I think is kind of just part of your natural singing voice. But to me, it sounds like a vulnerability, sincerity. And the longest track on the album is called Put Down the Bottle. It clocks in at over 6 minutes. So kind of going with Tony's question, like when you're writing that, like what is that song about? If it's not about a real life event, is it hard to kind of put yourself out there as far as vulnerability to make that come across?
So that song it's the hardest song to sing. It's based on, true experiences and, hard times with, family experiencing addiction and, coming to terms with that. And so that song kind of wrote itself. Like, that's where I was trying. Initially, I was like, I'm writing a Garth Brooks song. And then I was like, all right, so if it's going to be this vibe, it's got to be, what's going to be about. And then eventually, the concept came to me and the lyrics started coming, and then the song was...
When you're writing a song like that, that's so personal, then, like, normally I'm a fan of shorter songs. That one's over 6, and I would be fine if it was over 8, just because the song is so good. But when you were recording that, did it maybe cross your mind, like, I should try to shave a minute or two off this just so it's not over 6 minutes?
It didn't cross my mind until it was, like, pretty much already fully recorded, and I was like, oh, wow, like, this song is a long song. But
do you have an ideal length that when you're writing and you're timing it, you look at it and you're like, ooh, I should make it a little bit longer, a little bit shorter?
I typically try and make them as short as possible, but sometimes I get a little carried away.
Well, we're at the end of the hour already. I want to thank you for...
A little carried away. Yeah. It could be an album title.
That'll be the next one. And you'll be on it once I get your number.
Okay.
I want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to what Boy Howdy has coming up in the future. Where can people go to find out more about Boy Howdy?
I'm mostly on Instagram as @ohboyhowdy or Boy Howdy Productions. Facebook, and I have a website, boyhowdyproductions.com.